He looked his son in the eye and admitted he always knew he would leave his wife and 4 kids the moment his high school crush became available. He literally waited years just to blow up their family for a teenage fantasy. But the real kicker? He just cornered his son at a birthday party to ask why he isn't being rewarded for finally being happy. You guys, the audacity in this first story is actually going to make your blood boil. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. We are diving into some of the most emotional and absolutely unhinged Reddit stories we've seen in a long time. We've got family betrayals, husbands running away from their own kids, and ultimatums that make zero sense. We are on a serious mission to hit 10,000 subscribers, and every single like and sub brings us closer to that goal. So if you're ready for the drama, hit that subscribe button, get comfortable, and let's jump right into this chaos. Am I the asshole for asking my dad why I should reward his cheating and breaking up our family when he told me I shouldn't punish him for being happy? Okay, so before we even get into this, I need everyone to take a deep breath because this one is heavy and it's going to make you feel some type of way. We're diving into family destruction, emotional manipulation, and a dad who really thought he did something noble here. So the writer is 19, which means he's legally an adult, but also like barely. He's got 3 younger siblings, 15, 13, and 10. Pretty standard family setup, right? Mom, dad, 4 kids, probably had a dog and a minivan, the whole suburban dream situation going on. And then a couple years ago, dad decided to nuke all of that from orbit. He tells the mom he wants a divorce, which already sucks. But then comes the reason, and oh boy, this man really sat his family down and said, hey, so I reconnected with my high school crush and all those feelings came back, so I'm going to go be with her now. Bye. Like he's switching jobs or something instead of abandoning his entire family. The writer says it was a total surprise to everyone, mom, him, and all his siblings, which tracks because how do you even prepare for your parent to essentially say, yeah, I've been emotionally unavailable this whole time because I was pining for someone else? You can't. There's no preparation for that level of betrayal. But wait, it gets so much worse. Dad claims he never cheated, which, okay, maybe technically he didn't physically cheat, but let's examine what he did admit to because it's honestly more damning than if he just had an affair. This man admitted he never got over his high school crush. Never got over her. Which means for his entire marriage to the writer's mom through 4 kids, through presumably decades of life together, he was carrying a torch for someone else. He was emotionally invested in a fantasy of what could have been with this other woman while building a life with his actual wife. And then he drops the absolute bombshell. He always knew he'd leave if he got his chance with her. I'm sorry, can we just sit with that for a second? He always knew. This wasn't some sudden realization or midlife crisis moment. This man entered a marriage, had 4 children, knowing full well that if his high school crush ever became available, he was out. He built an entire family on a foundation of, well, this is fine, I guess, unless something better comes along. That's not a marriage. That's a really elaborate backup plan. The mom and kids weren't his life. They were his consolation prize while he waited for his real love to become available. Absolutely devastating. So the writer decided he wants nothing to do with dad, which is the most reasonable response possible. Like, what else are you supposed to do when you find out your entire childhood was basically your dad settling and waiting for an exit opportunity? The siblings feel the same way, but they're minors, so they have no choice. Dad has equal custody, so they have to see him. And here's where it gets petty and honestly kind of beautiful. The younger kids make life awful for dad and his girlfriend, all 3 of them. They're out here conducting psychological warfare during their custody time, just making it absolutely miserable, hoping dad will eventually give up and stop making them socialize with him and his true love. Like these kids are 15, 13, and 10, and they've collectively decided to make their father's new relationship as uncomfortable as possible. That's solidarity. That's commitment. That's 3 kids who looked at their dad's choices and said, bet, we're going to make you regret this every single custody weekend. The dad has been trying with the writer too since he left, inviting him to family dinners like they're all just going to play happy family with the woman he left their mom for, trying to set up meetings so the writer can meet the girlfriend and they can figure out a way forward. The audacity of this man to think his adult son wants to sit down for a nice dinner and get to know the person his dad emotionally cheated with for presumably years. Hey, son, come meet the woman I was always in love with instead of your mother. Let's break bread. Sir, read the room. The writer only responded once, and it was to shut that down hard. He told his dad the only way forward was no contact. Clean, simple, brutal. Honestly, the most mature and boundary setting response possible from a 19-year-old dealing with this level of family destruction. So for 2 years, the writer successfully avoided his dad. 2 whole years of no contact, which probably felt both peaceful and painful at the same time. But then came his little brother's 10th birthday party at mom's house, and dad showed up. Not only did dad show up, he got there early, specifically to corner the writer and have a conversation. Because apparently this man thinks ambushing your estranged son at a 10-year-old's birthday party is appropriate behavior and definitely won't ruin the vibe or anything. And what does dad say? Oh, this is rich. He tells the writer he thinks it's time he stopped punishing him and that he shouldn't punish him when he did something to make him happy and it had no impact on him. I'm sorry, what? No impact? No impact? This man really said blowing up his family and abandoning his marriage for his high school crush had no impact on his children. The mental gymnastics required to reach that conclusion should qualify for the Olympics. Your dad leaves your mom for another woman he's been emotionally invested in your whole life, destroys your family structure, creates a hostile custody situation for your younger siblings, and somehow that has no impact on you. The math isn't mathing. The logic isn't logicking. The writer, bless him, asks how his dad figured that when he broke up their family and cheated. Because, yeah, even if it wasn't physical, it was absolutely emotional cheating. The dad was maintaining an emotional connection and readiness to leave for another woman throughout his entire marriage. That's cheating. That's betrayal. That's breaking your wedding vows in every way except the most technical physical sense. The writer even points this out beautifully. It's still emotional cheating when you're ready to leave your wife the second another woman snaps her fingers. Because that's exactly what happened. This woman became available, and dad immediately said, "Cool, peace out, family. I'm going to go live my teenage fantasy." Dad emphasizes again that he never cheated. Like, that's the magic phrase that makes everything okay. Like, as long as he didn't physically touch her before the divorce, his conscience is clear, and everyone should just get over it. Sir, you were cheating in your heart for years. You were cheating in your mind every time you thought about what could have been with her instead of being present with your actual family. Then dad says it was nothing to do with the writer anyway, nothing to do with him. How disconnected from reality do you have to be to think that your actions as a parent have nothing to do with your children? Like, sure, dad, you completely restructuring the family has nothing to do with the people in that family. That makes total sense if you have zero brain cells. The writer fires back perfectly. It has everything to do with him when it changed his family and interrupted his life. Because it did. Going from a two-parent household to a broken home, watching your mom deal with the betrayal, having your siblings traumatized, losing the family structure you've known your whole life, that's not nothing to do with you. That's your entire world getting flipped upside down. Then the writer asks the million-dollar question: why should I reward those things, and why would I want his kind of influence in my life? Exactly. Why should he reward his dad's selfish behavior? Why should he sit down for dinners and play nice and pretend to care about dad's girlfriend when dad prioritized his own happiness over his children's stability? Why should he expose himself to someone who's proven that love and commitment mean nothing when something better comes along? And the writer tops it off with the most raw, honest statement. I told him I didn't give a fuck about his happiness or that woman he's with, and he was out of luck if he thinks he will ever get my seal of approval or get me to spend time with him and her. Brutal, honest, valid. Like, yeah. Why should the writer care about his dad's happiness? Did dad care about the writer's happiness when he left? Did he care about how the kids would feel knowing they were never the priority? Did he care about the mom's happiness after she built a life with someone who was always ready to bail? No, he cared about getting his second chance with his high school crush. That was the priority. His happiness was more important than his family's stability. So why should his kids care about that same happiness now? But dad's not done. Oh no, this man has more terrible takes to share. He says the writer's mindset is all wrong and that having a relationship doesn't reward him. It's good for the writer. This is manipulation 101. Flipping the script to make it seem like the victim is actually hurting themselves by maintaining boundaries. You're not punishing me by going no contact. You're hurting yourself. Classic manipulation tactic used by people who can't accept that their actions have consequences. Dad goes on to say the relationship could add another woman in my life who would be supportive and compassionate when I need it. Oh, you mean like the mother who was already in his life being supportive and compassionate until dad decided to abandon her for his teenage fantasy? That kind of support? Because the writer already had a supportive family structure until dad destroyed it. This isn't adding something beneficial. This is trying to replace what dad took away with a discount version featuring the person he took it away for. Dad says it's what the writer and his siblings miss out on by rejecting his girlfriend and future wife. Future wife. So dad's already planning to marry this woman, which just further emphasizes how little the family meant to him. He's already moving forward with his new life. Probably didn't even wait for the divorce to be finalized before planning the next wedding. And the whole miss out on framing is wild. They're not missing out on anything. They're protecting themselves from further hurt by a man who's proven he can't be trusted to prioritize them, They're not losing an opportunity. They're avoiding additional trauma. Then dad has the audacity to call the writer an asshole for framing things in the worst possible light. The worst possible light? The worst possible light. The writer is stating literal facts. Dad admitted he never got over his high school crush. Dad admitted he always knew he'd leave if given the chance. Dad did leave the family for this woman. Dad is trying to force a relationship with someone the kids don't want in their lives. There's no framing happening here. This isn't spin. This isn't exaggeration. This is just what happened, stated plainly. If the truth sounds bad, maybe that's because the actions were bad, not because they're being presented unfairly. Dad also takes issue with the rewarding versus not mentality, like it's some kind of immature way to think about it, but honestly, it's the perfect way to frame it because that's exactly what dad is asking for. He wants to be rewarded with his son's time, attention, affection, and acceptance, despite destroying the family for his own selfish desires. He wants the writer to essentially say, yeah, dad, it's totally cool that you emotionally cheated on mom for years and left us for your high school crush. Let me come have dinner and play happy family with the woman you chose over us. That's not a relationship, that's a reward. That's the writer giving his blessing and participation to something that hurt him deeply. The writer had to walk away because dad was ready to keep arguing, and the writer didn't want it to spill into his brother's party, which shows incredible maturity and restraint because I would have lost my mind. The fact that the writer could disengage to protect his little brother's birthday shows more emotional intelligence and consideration for family than dad has demonstrated in years. So let's get to the verdict. Not the asshole. Not even in the same universe as being the asshole. The writer owes his dad exactly nothing. Zero. Zilch. Nada. His dad made a choice to prioritize his own happiness and his feelings for another woman over his marriage and his children's well-being. That choice has consequences, and one of those consequences is losing his relationship with his adult son. The writer isn't punishing his dad, he's protecting himself. There's a massive difference. Punishment would be actively trying to hurt dad or sabotage his life. Protection is removing yourself from a situation and person that caused you pain. That's healthy boundaries, not punishment. And let's be real about what dad is really upset about. He thought he could have it all. He thought he could leave his family for his dream girl and maintain close relationships with his kids. He thought everyone would just understand that he had to follow his heart or whatever romanticized nonsense he told himself. and they'd all adapt and accept his new life. But that's not how it works. You don't get to blow up your family and then demand they help you build a new one with the person you left them for. You don't get to betray your spouse and expect your kids to welcome the affair partner, emotional or otherwise, with open arms. You don't get to prioritize your happiness over everyone else's and then get mad when they prioritize their own well being over your feelings. Dad made his choice. He got what he wanted, his high school crush, his true love, his second chance at the life he always dreamed of. Great. Awesome. Good for him, I guess. But he doesn't also get his kids' approval and participation. That's not part of the package. Those are separate things. And he destroyed the second one to get the first. The writer and his siblings are dealing with the trauma of parental abandonment, family destruction, and the realization that they were never the priority. That's heavy stuff that will probably take years of therapy to fully process. And dad thinks they should just get over it and have dinner with him and his girlfriend like nothing happened? Delusional. The younger kids making life miserable during custody? Good for them. They're using the only power they have in a situation where they're legally forced to spend time with someone who hurt them. They didn't ask for any of this, they don't want the new family structure, and they're making that abundantly clear. The writer going no contact? Perfect response. He's an adult, he can choose who he wants in his life, and someone who prioritized teenage nostalgia over his actual children doesn't make the cut. That's valid. Dad calling him an asshole and trying to manipulate him into compliance? Classic behavior from someone who can't accept responsibility for their actions and their consequences. It's easier to blame the kids for being unfair than to accept that he nuked his family and lost his children's respect in the process. The writer should continue no contact, continue protecting his peace, and absolutely should not feel guilty about any of it. His dad made adult choices and is facing adult consequences. The writer is setting healthy boundaries and protecting his emotional well being, which is exactly what he should be doing. And maybe if dad had approached this differently, if he'd acknowledged the pain he caused, if he'd given space instead of pushing for immediate acceptance, if he'd worked on rebuilding trust instead of demanding instant forgiveness, if he'd prioritized his kids' healing over his own desire for validation, maybe things could have been different eventually. But he didn't. He showed up at a birthday party to ambush his son and tell him his feelings are wrong and he's being unfair. He's still making it about himself and his needs instead of understanding the damage he caused. So no, writer, you're not the asshole. Your dad is, though. And he's probably going to spend a lot of years wondering why his kids want nothing to do with him while completely failing to understand that he did this to himself. Stand your ground, protect your peace, and don't let anyone guilt you into a relationship you don't want. You don't owe your dad anything just because he decided to chase his high school fantasy at the expense of his family. Not the asshole, not by any stretch of imagination, and I hope the writer finds healing and peace far away from his dad's manipulation. Am I the asshole for not letting my stepdaughter share a room with my daughter? All right, so we're diving straight into blended family drama, and let me tell you, this one's got layers like a really messed up onion that's going to make everyone cry. So the writer is a mom with two kids, daughter who's 16 and son who's 10. Pretty standard. Then she marries a dude who also has three kids, two daughters, 16 and 14, and a son who's also 10. So we've got a whole Brady Bunch situation happening, except instead of everyone singing and getting along, we're out here dealing with theft, fighting, and a man who apparently thinks the solution to his parenting problems is just leaving. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let me break down the living situation first because it's important. The two boys share a room, which makes sense. They're both 10, so they're probably just vibing, playing Fortnite or whatever 10-year-old boys do. The two stepdaughters share a room, which is where all our problems are coming from. And the writer's bio daughter has her own room, which is apparently the source of all this conflict. Now, before anyone jumps down this woman's throat, she makes it very clear this is her home. Like, she owned this house before, Mr. I can't handle my kids showed up with his 3 children. Her daughter has had that room since she was little, probably has all her memories there, decorated it herself. It's her space. That context matters because the husband is really out here acting like his kids are being discriminated against when they literally moved into someone else's established home. So here's where it gets spicy. The stepdaughters fight all the time, not like normal sibling bickering, that we're talking constant warfare. And the dad's whole strategy for dealing with this, he just gave up, literally threw his hands up and said, I never could figure out what the problem was. My guy, my guy, you're the parent. That's literally your job. I couldn't figure it out isn't a parenting strategy. That's just called giving up with extra steps. But wait, it gets better. The older stepdaughter, the 16-year-old, takes her younger sister's stuff and ruins it. Not borrows it, not uses it and returns it. Takes it, destroys it, and never gives it back. Like, this girl is out here conducting psychological warfare on her own sister through property destruction. And what's dad's solution? He throws money at it. Oh, we'll just pay for the stolen stuff. Buddy, buddy, that doesn't fix the problem. That's just enabling theft with a payment plan. You're basically running an insurance scam for your own daughter's bad behavior. The younger sister doesn't want money for new stuff. She wants her actual stuff back, and maybe, I don't know, for her older sister to face some consequences. And of course, the writer's bio daughter got caught in the crossfire because the older stepdaughter decided to expand her theft operation. She started taking the writer's daughter's stuff too, because why limit yourself to one victim when you can have two, right? So the writer did what any reasonable parent would do. She got her daughter a lock for her door, a lock, basic security, the same thing millions of teenagers have. But the husband didn't agree with this because the younger stepdaughter wanted a lock too, but that wouldn't work since she shares a room with her sister. Let's pause here because the logic is wild. The younger stepdaughter wants a lock to protect herself from her thieving sister, which is completely valid and reasonable. But dad says no because they share a room. So his solution is nobody gets protection. The victim doesn't get security because it might be inconvenient. Make it make sense. This man really said, if I can't protect one daughter from the other, nobody gets protected, like some kind of twisted fairness doctrine. That's not fairness. That's just equally bad parenting distributed across all children. So, after what the writer describes as a series of big fights, which I'm imagining was absolutely exhausting and probably sounded like a reality TV show was filming in their house, the husband comes up with his solution. And oh boy, this solution is something. He wants to move the older stepdaughter, the one who steals and ruins everything, into the writer's daughter's room, the room that's been hers since she was little, her safe space, her sanctuary from all this blended family chaos. He wants to put the known thief in there with her. The writer immediately says no, and honestly, valid. She gives 2 very good reasons. First, the stepdaughter is basically a thief and will start stealing from her daughter. This isn't speculation. This is based on established patterns of behavior and historical evidence. Like, we have a whole track record here of this girl taking and ruining other people's stuff. Why would anyone think putting her in a room with more stuff to take would solve anything? Second reason, and this one's important, it's her daughter's room. This is the daughter's established space in the mother's established home. The husband is out here arguing that it isn't fair that his daughters are stuck in one room while the writer's daughter gets her own room. But, like, they moved into her house. The daughter was there first. She didn't create this situation. The adults did when they decided to blend their families. And instead of dealing with his own daughter's behavior problems, he wants to punish the writer's daughter by forcing her to give up her space and privacy to accommodate his, who has proven she can't be trusted around other people's belongings. The math isn't mathing. The husband literally begged and said he felt like the fighting was never going to end, and this was the only solution. The only solution. This man really looked at the situation and decided that instead of parenting his children, setting boundaries, creating consequences for theft, or getting family therapy, the only possible answer was to displace an innocent kid from her own room. Sir, if this is your only solution, you need better problem-solving skills. This is like saying the only solution to a leaky faucet is burning down the house. The writer suggests mixing the boys with the girls, which actually makes sense. You've got two 10-year-old boys, a 14-year-old girl, and a 16-year-old girl. You could do girls in one room, boys in another, and someone gets their own space. But the husband shuts that down immediately with a hard, hell no. His reasoning? Boys never share with girls. Period. 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 This man just made up a rule like it's written in the Constitution. Boys never share with girls. My guy, they're 10. They're literal children. They're not going to be doing anything weird. They're going to be arguing about whose turn it is on the iPad. This isn't some moral issue. You just don't want to do it because it's not traditional or whatever. So let me get this straight. Boys can't share with girls because of some arbitrary rule you just decided is law. But it's totally fine to force two girls who have proven they can't coexist peacefully to share a room. And also fine to force your daughter who steals onto an innocent girl who's done nothing wrong. The logic is giving, I don't actually want to solve this. I just want it to be easier for me. When the writer stands her ground and says no, they end up fighting. And the husband calls her selfish and unsupportive because she said he needs to handle his own daughters. Handle his own daughters. This man is out here calling his wife selfish because she won't sacrifice her daughter's well-being to fix his parenting failures. The audacity, the absolute audacity of this man. She's unsupportive because she won't let him take the easy way out that involves making her kids suffer? No, sir. No. Being supportive doesn't mean enabling bad solutions. Being supportive doesn't mean your wife has to throw her own child under the bus because you can't figure out how to stop your kids from fighting. And then this man, this absolute child of a man, decides to throw a tantrum. He says he's going to stay with a friend because he can't handle the fighting anymore. Let that sink in. The parent, the father of these fighting children can't handle them. So he's leaving. He's just bouncing, piecing out, dipping from his own parenting responsibilities because it's hard. But wait, it gets worse. He says he won't come back until she agrees to let his older daughter move in with her daughter. This is emotional blackmail. This is manipulation. This is a grown man holding his presence in the home hostage to force his wife into doing something that's bad for her child. He's essentially saying, give me what I want or I'm abandoning everyone, and thinking that's a reasonable negotiation tactic. The writer asks if this is a hill he's willing to die on, and he says, yes, which escalated everything. So now he's been gone for 2 days. And here's the really messed up part. The writer is left watching his stepdaughters yell at each other, his daughters, that he left behind because he couldn't handle them. So now she's dealing with the fighting, the chaos, the theft, all of it, while he's chilling at a friend's place, probably playing Xbox and feeling like he's making some kind of point. The writer correctly identifies this as a manipulation tactic. He's using this as a way to hopefully get her to cave in and say yes. He thinks if he just leaves her with the problem long enough, she'll break and give him what he wants. Classic manipulation strategy. Honestly, kind of gross. And she ends with this absolutely heartbreaking line. But I can't imagine doing this to my daughter. That's what a parent sounds like. Someone who actually considers their child's well-being, safety, and emotional needs. Not someone who just wants the easiest solution that makes their life more convenient. Then we get to the edits, because apparently this post blew up, which honestly it deserved to, because this is wild. Someone asked about the stepdaughter's mom, and oh boy, does this add context. She left 2 years ago with her foreign husband to move to his home country. Let me repeat that. She left her 3 children, moved to another country with a new man, and now just talks to them via social media and video calls. She doesn't play a major role in their life and doesn't seem to care as long as the girls are taken care of. And here's the kicker. She thinks the fighting and stealing is no big deal. So these girls have a mom who literally abandoned them to another country, a dad who can't figure out how to parent them and runs away when it gets hard, and they're acting out through fighting and theft. Wow, I wonder why they might have some behavioral issues. This is absolutely not a mystery that requires Sherlock Holmes to solve. The older stepdaughter is probably acting out because she has abandonment issues and control issues. She can't control her mom leaving or her dad being useless, but she can control taking things from her sister. It's not right, but it makes psychological sense. The younger one is probably fighting because she's angry and hurt and has no healthy outlets. These girls need therapy. They need actual parenting. They need stability and boundaries and consequences and probably family counseling. What they don't need is to be shuffled around like furniture to make their dad's life easier. And you know what definitely won't help? Forcing them into situations that enable the bad behavior or create new victims. So here's my verdict: not the asshole, not even close. The writer is protecting her daughter from a situation that would absolutely be harmful. She's not being selfish, she's being a good parent. Her daughter didn't create this mess, didn't contribute to the fighting, hasn't done anything wrong, and doesn't deserve to lose her space and privacy and potentially her belongings to accommodate a stepsister who has proven she steals and ruins things. The husband is absolutely TA here, and honestly, this whole situation has me seeing red flags everywhere. He won't parent his kids. He wants his wife to sacrifice her kid to make his life easier. He's using emotional manipulation and abandonment as negotiation tactics. And he's literally run away from his responsibilities while leaving his wife to deal with his children. And can we talk about the fact that he's perfectly fine leaving his daughters in that house to keep fighting while he's gone? Like, if the situation was so unbearable that it's the only thing he can think about and he needs it solved immediately, why is he okay with just leaving them there to continue? It's almost like it was never about the girl's well being and always about him wanting an easy solution. This man needs to step up and actually parent. He needs to get his daughters into therapy, both individual and family, create actual consequences for the stealing and fighting, stop trying to make other people's kids suffer for his kids' behavior, come back home and deal with his responsibilities instead of running away like a teenager who got grounded. Maybe examine why both his ex-wife and he seem to think parenting is optional. The writer should not cave. Do not let that stepdaughter move in with your daughter. Your daughter deserves her space, her safety, and a parent who will protect her. If the husband wants to stay away until you agree, let him stay away. At this point, he's not contributing anything positive anyway. And honestly, the fact that he's willing to abandon his wife and all the children over this tells you everything you need to know about his priorities and his character. Stand your ground. Get those stepdaughters some help, and maybe reconsider if this marriage is actually serving you and your children. Because right now it sounds like you traded a peaceful home for a chaotic one, and your partner isn't even willing to help manage the chaos he brought with him. Not the asshole, not even a little bit, and anyone who says otherwise is wild. Am I the asshole for refusing to tell my wife I love her more than my dad? Okay, so the writer starts this off saying it's a stupid argument, and honestly, buckle up because this is about to get messy in the most suburban way possible. So the setup is pretty innocent, right? Dad comes over to babysit so this couple can actually remember what it's like to be adults who eat food that isn't shaped like dinosaurs. The writer even picked up his dad because apparently dad's out here avoiding night driving like it's his toxic ex. Wholesome so far, we love a caring son. They tell grandpa the baby needs to be in the crib by 8. Simple instructions, even came with a timestamp and everything. But here's where things get spicy. They come home and grandpa's just chilling on the couch, baby asleep in his arms like some kind of Hallmark movie scene. And grandpa immediately hits them with the I'm sorry, which honestly is never a good sign. Baby wouldn't go in the crib, kept fussing, so grandpa said, screw it, and just held him. Now, look, I get both sides here, but the wife was upset. Like, you know, that kind of upset where someone's face is doing all the talking before their mouth even opens? Yeah, that kind. The writer takes the baby to the crib, and when he comes back, his dad and wife are doing that whisper arguing thing that somehow feels louder than actual yelling. So the writer decides to dip and drive dad home. Smart move, honestly. Get grandpa out of the war zone. And during the drive, dad's apologizing again, being all reasonable, like, yeah, the baby probably just missed you guys and was anxious, which is actually pretty emotionally intelligent for a grandpa who can't work a crib. The writer agrees and says it's no big deal. And honestly, at this point, it really isn't that big of a deal. Babies are going to baby, grandpas are going to grandpa. It happens. But then he gets home. Wife is still upset and immediately asks what dad said about her specifically. Like, she's convinced there was a whole roast session happening in that car. The writer tells the truth. Dad didn't say anything about her, just talked about the baby. But wife is not having it. She goes into this whole thing about sleep schedules and consistency, which, okay, fair. Sleep training is literally psychological warfare, and I respect the dedication. The writer agrees with her. He literally says, "You're right," and suggests they cut grandpa some slack because the man probably last dealt with a baby when flip phones were peak technology. Reasonable response, honestly. But wife interprets this as him taking dad's side. She hits him with the classic, "Why are you taking his side over mine?" And honestly, this is where I started feeling the tension through the screen. The writer tries to de escalate by saying he's not taking sides and that they had a great night, so why let this ruin it? Wrong move, my guy. Wrong move. Because now wife says it isn't minor and he's supposed to back her up, not gossip about her with his dad. And the writer's like, "I didn't gossip. I literally just drove him home," which is factually correct, but emotionally, not the play. Then wife drops this bomb. "Why did you drive him home when I was clearly upset?" And the writer's confused because, like, that was always the plan. He picked dad up. He was going to drive dad back. This isn't some shocking plot twist. But wife suggests he could have ordered a rideshare or cab instead. The writer points out that was always the plan. And wife hits back with this sarcastic, "right, because we have to stick with the almighty plan," which honestly is such a loaded statement. I don't even know where to unpack it. So the writer asks why she didn't just say she wanted him to do something different. Communication, right? Makes sense. But wife flips it and asks if he even would have done it if she asked. The writer's honest and says he wasn't sure because ride shares cost money and take time. Wife says exactly like she just won a debate tournament. The writer suggests they could have talked about it, and then wife drops this absolute gem. "I'm always trying to sit on the fence when I should be on her field." Her field. Like, this is some kind of sports metaphor for marriage. The writer insists he is on her field, but clearly wife's keeping score differently. And then wife asks the nuclear question: "Who do you love more, me or your dad?" I'm sorry, what? Like, we went from baby didn't sleep in crib to rank your loved ones by numerical value in record time. This escalated faster than a Fast and Furious movie and made about as much sense. The writer very reasonably says that's a crazy question and he's not answering it because it is crazy. But wife says she needs to know. This woman really said, "I need you to put your familial relationships into a tier list right now." The writer explains he doesn't rank people he loves. He loves his wife as a wife and his dad, which is actually emotionally mature and makes total sense. These are different types of love. You can't compare them like you're choosing between pizza toppings. But wife says he's an asshole for not choosing her. And the writer hits back with honestly one of the funniest lines in this whole mess. He doesn't think love is a numbered list like some kind of Watch Mojo video. Number 7 will shock you. It's your wife. So here's my verdict: not the asshole. Like, not even close. This whole situation spiraled because of a baby being fussy and grandpa being too sweet to let him cry it out. The writer did gossip, didn't badmouth his wife, literally just drove his elderly father home as planned. Was he supposed to leave dad sitting in the living room like abandoned furniture while he had a feeling session with his wife? And that love ranking question? Absolutely unhinged behavior. You can't demand someone rate their parent versus their spouse like it's some kind of emotional Hunger Games. That's not how love works. That's not how any of this works. The wife is clearly upset about something deeper than the baby situation, and she's projecting it onto this grandpa crib incident. Maybe she feels unsupported in general. Maybe she's exhausted from parenting. Maybe she's dealing with postpartum stuff. There could be 1,000 valid reasons she's feeling this way. But taking it out on the writer for not abandoning his dad and declaring her the supreme leader of his heart? Nah. They need to have an actual conversation about what's really bothering her because this ain't it. This is just a Tuesday night that went completely off the rails and turned into a relationship referendum over a sleeping baby. Also, can we acknowledge that Grandpa sounds like a sweet dude who just wanted to comfort his grandson? The man held a fussy baby for hours instead of letting him scream. That's dedication. Give Grandpa a break and maybe some updated baby care tips. But yeah, Ryder, you're good, not the asshole. Your wife needs to chill, and you both need to talk about the actual issue here because I promise you it's not about whether you drove your dad home or ordered him an Uber.